Hello, and welcome to Preschool Professional Learning Asynchronous Session, Exploring the Educator's Role During Interest Areas, hosted by the Early Learning Team, Spring 2025. In the corner of the next few slides, you'll see a bit.ly link for you to access today's slide deck. For today's learning, you'll need the following resources: a digital copy of the participant guide, completed individually or as a group, your Interest Area Guide Volume 2, and a growth mindset. We want to ground back in our district's vision, mission, and values and our top 4 priorities and how these guide our major initiative work of student outcomes and central services in support of student outcomes. Here is this year's overarching learning outcomes for all teachers PK-12. Take a minute to reground in these outcomes. Our instructional excellence arc of learning you have likely seen before. Our work is in alignment with instructional excellence and strengthening the instructional core by continuing to deepen our curriculum implementation. We will continue our focus on a strong vision for instruction, including instructional practices to support subgroup needs, our students on IEPs, and multi-language learners. We want to briefly touch upon where we've been and the research we've anchored to. Over the past 2 years, we focused on building common understandings around the research-based practices and resources that will move us closer to excellent instruction in every classroom. And we started here with Elmore's instructional core as our framework. Elmore's research says there's only 3 ways to improve student learning at scale, meaning more than just 1 or 2 classrooms. And you have to do all 3. You can't just change one factor. When you think about these things working together, what we're talking about is what's essential for ensuring Tier 1 or best first instruction. As you know, your feedback is very valuable to us to ensure that the professional learning we provide meets your needs. Take a few minutes to look through the feedback data from our February 14th professional learning session. This data reflects some of the trends that left you feeling inspired after our last session. We utilize your feedback to make adjustments to make sure the learning meets your needs. You will see that we have offered different learning structures this time around, including virtual to meet the diverse needs of adult learners. You will also see that we will be spending time digging deeper into interest areas, which will have a direct application into your classroom practice, giving you time to interact and collaborate with others throughout. Here are the learning outcomes for our time together today. Please take a moment to read them. With those outcomes in mind, we have created this agenda for our time together today. You will now need to access your participant guide. As we reach the end of our program year, think about your classroom as a garden. What seeds did you plant at the beginning of the year? What challenges did you cultivate? And what beautiful blooms have you witnessed in your students and in your own growth? Take some time to jot down one seed, one challenge, and one bloom from your year. Pause the video to complete your reflection. Take a moment to read Outcome 1, which is aligned to developing a culture of instructional excellence. The outcome is aligned with the Teacher Rubric Indicator 3, Learning Environment. Teachers create and maintain a classroom environment that emphasizes conditions and qualities conducive to learning and support student success. Take a minute to self-reflect. Where would you rate your current practices on this indicator? What is a next growth step or focus for you? As we start to think about implementing strategies for student engagement within interest areas, We are going to set the stage for intentionality in the interest areas, which is the primary time when students are engaged in play. Active engagement in learning involves learners actively participating and interacting with the material, while passive engagement is more about absorbing information without active involvement. Active engagement promotes deeper understanding, while passive engagement often leads to more surface level understanding. Pause this video and in your participant guide, respond to the question, how do we move beyond passive play? How do we actively engage students within interest areas to elicit deeper learning? At our PL session in February, we spent time learning about a variety of strategies to utilize in your classroom to teach intentionally and responsively. Take a minute to review the key strategies here on the screen. In a few minutes, we will release you for some collaborative work time where you'll be able to review the article if you would like. It is linked in your participant guide. To deepen your learning around responsive teaching, you're now going to think through the lens of planning for one interest area. You will start by selecting an interest area you want to focus on. We encourage you to select the area that you feel is not your strongest when it comes to responsive teaching and feedback, or an area where students seem to be less engaged during choice time. In your participant guide, complete the 4-part table for the interest area you selected. As you read, take notes on the intentional setup, what children learn, observing and responding to individual children, and interacting with children. Pause this video to complete the activity and come back when you're finished. Remember, as you complete the table, you want to answer the question we just posed. How do we actively engage students within interest areas to elicit deeper learning? Take a moment to read Outcome 2, which is aligned to developing a culture of belonging and student engagement. This outcome is aligned with Teacher Rubric Indicator 2, Instructional Delivery. Teachers demonstrate the knowledge, skills, and dispositions to deliver effective instruction. Take a minute to self-reflect. Where would you rate your current practices on this indicator? What is a next growth step or focus for you? You're now going to briefly review the core principles of our Jeffco instructional approach, emphasizing teaching the whole child. Play is essential and promotes problem-solving skills, self-regulation, cognitive and social competencies, alongside learning of content knowledge. Also, preschool lays the foundation for our children to become critical thinkers. Pause the video and go to page 4 in your participant guide to code the reading using the text highlight colors. Now that you've spent more time analyzing our instructional approach, what connections are you making between intentionality in creating enriching learning experiences and our Jeffco instructional approach? We're now going to spend time exploring and defining child-led exploration. First, activate your prior knowledge about this concept by completing the closed passage with important concepts on page 5 in your participant guide. Pause the video to complete this activity. Read this definition of child-led exploration. Now that we're grounded in that definition, work with your group to match concepts with their definition on the activity on page 5 in your participant guide. Pause the video to complete this activity. Now you can check your answers. Notice that we left the benefits of child-led exploration without an answer key. That was intentional. Why do you think we didn't provide answers? Open-ended materials promote creativity, problem-solving, and critical thinking by allowing for multiple interpretations and solutions. They encourage exploration, experimentation, and the development of unique ideas. The absence of strict instructions fosters independent thinking and problem-solving skills as individuals navigate challenges and find their own ways to achieve desired outcomes. Now you're going to spend some time brainstorming examples of open-ended materials for your interest area that you define in Outcome 1. There's space to record your brainstorming on page 6 of your participant guide. Pause the video to complete this. Intentionally designed play environments, coupled with teachers who strategically expand play and ask challenging questions, provide significant learning opportunities for children to connect play with real-world concepts. Integrating both child-directed and guided play is vital. This deliberate approach to play ensures that the learning is as focused and coherent as any teacher-led lesson, while respecting individual developmental needs. As children engage in play, teachers act as researchers, observing and using their observations to extend learning in the moment and when planning future play settings. Now we're going to analyze student scenarios, utilizing what you learned about engaging students in interest areas. First, read the student scenario for each of the interest areas. These are on page 6 of your participant guide. Then, reflect on the scenario to think about how you would respond. Last, record how you would respond to each scenario. There are guiding prompts to help plan your responses at the top of the grid. You can complete this individually or as a team. Also, remember to go back to the table in the section Respond to Each Child from the Interest Area book as a resource to complete this.
Pause the video to complete this task.
Take a moment to read Outcome 3, which is aligned to developing a culture of instructional excellence. Outcome 3 is aligned with Teacher Rubric Indicator 1, Planning and Preparation. Teachers demonstrate mastery of and pedagogical expertise in the content they teach. Take a minute to self-reflect. Where do you rate your current practices on this indicator? What is a next growth step or focus for you? You just engaged in identifying strategies to move beyond passive play and actively engage students in deeper learning. You also analyzed brief student interactions within interest areas to become more fluent in facilitating discovery through questioning as a high-impact strategy. The intentional teaching experiences found within the studies are designed to support one of 4 areas of children's learning and development: social, emotional, physical, and language development, and learning within literacy and mathematics. Now you're going to take time to review and design the instructional support features within intentional teaching experiences, or ITEs. The reading excerpt comes from the Getting Started Guide within the first 6 weeks materials of Creative Curriculum. The reading is linked in your participant guide. As you read, connect to your current reality of how you implement ITEs. When during my instructional day do I set up small groups to implement an ITE? Do I always present ITEs in small groups during choice time? Which features of the ITE support my planning for feedback during and after I facilitate the learning? Pause the video to read and reflect about the components of ITEs. Now that you've reviewed the design and instructional support features within ITEs, take time to discuss how your understanding of planning for and executing ITEs may have grown deeper. You can discuss with your team or reflect individually. There are some guiding questions here on the slide as well as on page 8 in your participant guide. Use these prompts to support your thinking and conversation and jot some notes. Pause the video to complete this task. You're now going to have dedicated time to internalize interest area instruction through the planning guidance in the internalization framework. Here's the interest area internalization chart from our exercise internalization example. We welcome you and/or your team to utilize your current planning grid or start from the example we published for the purposes of this shared planning experience. As you glance through the interest area grid, notice interest areas that are supported by ITEs. Are some interest areas supported by ITEs more than others? You can get the digital copy of this grid in your participant guide.
Pause the video to complete this task.
Now that you've reviewed where you'll be implementing ITEs through the exercise study, your team will unpack one ITE as a group. For today's shared planning experience, we've selected ITE LL57, Photo Writing. The interest area internalization chart has 2 sections to record collaborative planning. Take time to complete the first section where you'll script levels of proficiency based on the teaching sequence. You'll notice there's space to record 3-year-old and 4-year-old skills. A blank copy of this planning grid is linked for you in your participant guide to make a copy of and engage in the planning. You can also plan from your team or classroom's internalization planning documents you've developed over the year. Pause the video to script the levels of proficiency based on the teaching sequence from LL57 photo writing. Now, considering your conversations and concepts discussed during outcomes 1 and 2, you'll collaborate to plan for scaffolds and supports to ensure access for all students and challenge for those that need it. This planning work will prepare us to engage in role play opportunities. Pause the video to take 5 minutes to plan for, access, and challenge opportunities. Here is a completed planning grid for planning materials, access, and challenge for this ITE. Compare it to the notes that your team recorded on your planning document. Are there ideas that were the same? Are there some strategies or instructional moves that are unique to your planning? The second portion of planning for ITEs is to think about what academic content and social language you might look for throughout the ITE. What might it sound like from students to engage in academic language? What might it sound like from students to engage in content language? And what might it sound like when they engage in social interactions during the ITE? Pause the video to take 5 minutes to plan for academic, content, and social language for this ITE. Here is the completed portion for planning the look-fors for this ITE. Notice that we included additional interest areas that this ITE could be offered, and we also scripted out what we might hear from students when they're engaged in academic, content, and social language for this specific ITE. Utilizing the planning you've just engaged in, you'll now practice facilitating the ITE through role play. You will engage in partners in 2 rounds so that each of you has a chance to be the student and the teacher. On the screen, you'll see instructions on how to engage in this role play. Pause the video to partner up and engage in role playing through the ITE. If you're completing this learning on your own, page 9 has a grid like the one you completed during outcome 2. This time you're going to zoom in and plan for the library interest area and plan for reflecting and responding for the ITE LL57. The grid includes student scenarios that you're going to respond to. Pause the video and take 5 to 10 minutes to complete this grid. Based on your experiences in role-playing with the ITE or planning deeply for the library interest area with the ITE as your support, take some time to reflect. There's space on page 8 in your participant guide to record your thinking. Connecting to our academic monitoring practices, we want to remind you that the ITEs serve as a starting point for monitoring, documenting, and providing feedback for student learning and progress. Beyond the ITEs, your intentional planning for play-based learning that supports student discovery will reinforce the prioritized objectives throughout the day. To close our learning today, please take a few moments to reflect and jot down your thinking around the following questions. Questions are also listed on your participant guide at the bottom of page 9. Pause the video to record your thinking. Thank you for joining us for this asynchronous learning opportunity. Your feedback is very important to us and ensures that we are meeting your needs. Please take a few minutes to complete the feedback form. You can access it through the QR code on this screen or in your participant guide at the bottom of page 9. Finally, in order to receive 3 clock hours for participating in this asynchronous virtual learning, please share your participant guide with your TOSA in Google. The participant guide can be individual or completed as a team. If it was completed as a team, please provide everyone's name on the first page of the guide. Let your TOSA know if you have any questions, and have a wonderful day.